All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing, Sharpe's Trafalgar by Bernard Cornwell, book number 4 in the Richard Sharpe adventure series of, I say, 21 or 22 books that Bernard Cornwell has done. Richard Sharpe being the main character, a rifleman in the British Army during the not World War II. It wasn't even World War II. It was the Napoleonic Wars, whenever those were, the 1800s, early 1800s. So there's, like I said, there's about 20 some odd books in the series. I've got the entire series over here. We got our entire Richard Sharpe book series right there. Then we got all our other Bernard Cornwell books on that shelf. I pretty much have every Bernard Cornwell book that he's written. Many of them signed, because you know I love showing off my signed copies. And, I got book number 1, Sharpe's Tiger, here signed. And then, we've got, I just thought I'd show you another one. I got about half of the books signed, but, Excalibur is signed there anyway. We got a handful of Bernard Cornwell signed books. Let's talk about Sharpe's Trafalgar, book number 4 in the series. This takes place in Spain in 1805. I've reviewed the first 3 books in the series, starting with Sharpe's Tiger, which I just showed you. In those 3 books, Richard Sharpe was a young man, newly kind of, getting his feet wet in the army and in India, Bombay. He went through some battles in the first 3 books in India. Now he's leaving India, going back to his homeland of Britain via ship, and that's when he gets embroiled in the Battle of Trafalgar. Before we get into all of that, let's talk about the covers first, because I love graphic design and cover illustration. This is a cool cover. It matches, the first 4 or 5 books all kind of match in style with these covers. They're really cool. They all kind of go together nicely. Or decent enough, anyway. The cover is done by I don't know who did this cover. Let me see. It looks like it was cover art by Paul Wright, who did the other covers. Okay, by the way, I'm wearing my HMS Victory shirt because the HMS Victory was the battleship that Lord Nelson was on during the Battle of Trafalgar when the British just decimated the French fleet in that battle. One of the most lopsided naval battles in the history of the world. And the ship Victory is now docked in Portsmouth, England. I went to Portsmouth, England, specifically to visit the ship Victory. And oh my gosh, just one of the things that's cool about this book, not only the cover, but there's a map of these battleships that they were doing. There's a map of the actual Battle of Trafalgar and where each ship was in relation to the others during the battle. It's just cool. But when I first stepped on in Portsmouth, England, when I went to the HMS Victory to see this battleship, the first thing I noticed when I stepped onto the battleship, and it was huge. I think 32 guns per side or something. Probably more than that. I might be miscounting. But anyway, the first thing I noticed as I stepped onto this ship was the overwhelming scent, smell, aroma of heavy, heavy timber. Because these ships were made of nothing but wood. And as soon as you step on it, it's like you are in the most, it's like stepping into a ski lodge, just the way it smells with the heavy timber and just the scent of the wood. It is permanent. It's just overwhelming. That was the first thing I noticed. And then, I toured the ship and saw, the area where Lord Nelson was shot, and then the area where he died. And then later, when I went to Windsor Castle, they had the little musket ball that killed him, or something. Yeah, I think it was the little musket ball that killed him. Anyway, or the musket ball they dug out of his body. Whatever. It's just cool. I love history. That's one of the reasons I love these type of books, is I read the stories, I go visit the places. Sometimes I visit the places, then read the stories. But Sharpe's Trafalgar, the Battle of Trafalgar, is one of the most fascinating battles ever. So I'm glad that Bernard Cornwell took his main character, Richard Sharpe, into this battle, even though it's a little implausible that he would have been there. And the ships Bernard Cornwell takes a little bit of artistic license and adds 2 ships into that battle that really weren't there. If you do want to read some great books about, I haven't even talked about this book yet, but if you want to read some other great books about the Battle of Trafalgar, what you want to do is get this one called Seize the Fire by Adam Nicholson, I think that's, yeah. It's been about 12 years or 15 years since I read this. This is by far the bloodiest, most gruesome depiction of warfare I've ever read. When these cannonballs were being shot from one ship into the other ship, it was a bloody, gruesome, and grim mess. And this guy describes it in so much gory, bloody detail. I was just like horrified. Another great book about the Battle of Trafalgar is just simply called Nelson's Trafalgar by Roy Adkins. And this is a good one too. It was an absolutely beautiful cover. So those are 2 extra books you can get on the subject. So let's talk about this book specifically. We've talked about my visit to the HMS Victory. We've talked about other books. Let's talk about Richard Sharpe and what goes on with him and how does he end up in the Napoleonic Wars. He seems to end up in every major battle of the Napoleonic Wars, from Trafalgar to Waterloo and everything in between. So Richard Sharpe, he's had some adventures as a young soldier in the continent of India. This book starts out in Bombay. He's getting ready to leave to go back to the British Isles. He kind of gets conned. This guy says, hey, we will make sure, we'll hold your property in this little warehouse, and then when you're ready to go to get onto the ship, we'll load that stuff onto the ship for you. And Richard Sharpe pays the guy the money for the service, and then the guy, well, the warehouse mysteriously burns down. And all of they sift through the rubble, and all of Richard Sharpe's stuff is gone. So now he's got to solve the case. Who stole his stuff before the place burnt down? And turns out that he was conned. The guy never had planned. The guy took and sold his stuff. In fact, he took a lot of people's stuff with the promise that he would put it on the ship. And then he burnt the warehouse down, never having stored any of the people's. He just sold the stuff. He just sold it and then burnt the thing. So anyway, Richard Sharpe now has to go on this revenge tale. He's I'm going to find this bastard, and I'm going to show him you don't with Richard Sharpe. So he goes out in the middle of Bombay. He's looking for this guy, finds the guy. In the midst of him kind of getting his revenge on the guy, he meets another British soldier who he quite likes. And it's hard for Richard Sharpe to meet other British soldiers that he likes. Most of them that come across as squirrely, or the officers are very we're better than you type of a person. But he meets this guy Chase, who was also seeking revenge on this con man. And they develop a friendship. Richard Sharpe ends up on the ship with Chase. The ship is the Calliope, I think. I don't know how it's pronounced. It's spelled Caliope. Anyway, they head for home. Of course, on the ship, there is a colonel who has a very pretty daughter. Richard Sharpe is a very handsome guy. He's going to get the girl in the end. This causes no small, minor love triangle like jealousies aboard the ship, because Richard Sharpe is the guy that's getting the girl on the ship. And this is a long-ass voyage, right? They're going from India all the way around up to Britain. So they got to go a long way around the coast, down through under Africa, up the coast. They're going to be passing through France and the Battle of Trafalgar. Anyway, in the midst of this journey, they are boarded by another ship called the Revenant. And that ship takes over the Calliope. It's kind of like... And then both ships sort of end up in the middle of the Battle of Trafalgar. That's kind of it. And then the Battle of Trafalgar goes the way the Battle of Trafalgar goes, just with Richard Sharpe and all these other characters on these 2 other ships involved. And that's basically it. That's basically it. Pretty simple. Did I like it? I think 1, 2, 3, 4. I think, even though I'm so fascinated with the Battle of Trafalgar, I was actually more interested in books 1, 2, and 3 than this one. And I'm not sure why. Maybe because I don't know why. Even though I liked this one a lot, I liked books 1, 2, 3, and 3 better. And as I'm rereading all of them, I've read all of them once. So I'm going to give this a solid 8 out of 10 stars. Book number 4, Sharpe's Trafalgar. Trafalgar. If I'm mispronouncing it, let me know in the comments.